Hi, Flosstube. You know, I love Stitch With Me videos. So as well as talking about my lap frame and my floor frame and the hoops that I use and lamps and all of that, Stitch With Me videos are so popular, I think partly because you want to see how other people stitch. We sit here in our houses and stitch all by ourselves, and we have no idea how everyone else stitches in their house. Do you know what I mean? And I love the Stitch With Me videos because you can see what they're actually stitching on when the camera is right there, and you can see how they stitch. But I also want to know, where do you stitch? Where are you sitting? How do you sit? Do you put your feet up? Do you have your feet down? You know, what part of your house do you stitch in? Those are always fascinating to me, and in a Stitch With Me video sometimes you don't get to see that. And if you have to have the camera right there so people can see you actually stitching, then you're probably not stitching how you usually stitch anyway, right? So I wanted to introduce you to my stitching nest, as we call it. This is where I stitch almost every day. This is the new room that we added onto our house. It's at the back of the kitchen. We had a bay window with a door in it that went outside, and they took that bay out and then just added 12 feet onto the back of the house. So there's just an opening from the kitchen through that, just a big opening into this new room. And then above the kitchen sink there was a window that looked outside, and they just took that window out and framed it out as just an opening. So you can sit I'm looking at the sink right here. You can stand at the sink and look into the new room and see all the beautiful windows. I have seasonal depression in the winter. I love sun. I live in Utah, in case you didn't know yet already. In the winter, it's not the snow that bothers me, it's the shorter days and there's no sun. And my office at work right now has no windows and hasn't for 5 years. I'm in a room that it's kind of a cave. So when we added on to this room, my biggest wish was light. So it has a window each on the short sides, and then on the long sides I have 3 windows clear across. So this room has 5 windows, and it's only 12 by maybe 20 feet. So my name for it is the solarium. So I stitch in the solarium every day. There is a TV up here on the wall between the 2 openings so I can watch TV. And I do usually have a table that sits right here where I have my laptop. If I'm watching, sometimes I like to watch Flosstube on the laptop, because if you're watching it on the TV, it's hard, you can't comment after you've watched the video. So I like having the little laptop right here, or if I'm working with a PDF pattern, I have my laptop right here. But then if I'm watching Flosstube on the laptop, then I can quickly at the end of the video stop and make a comment and then go on to the next video. Although I do like having it on the big screen where you can see it big while you're stitching. All right, so I stitch here. This is an Ott lamp. I'll bring it down so you can see it. This is an Ott brand lamp. I like it because it's a little more nice looking to have in here. When I have it on, I usually have it right down next to me, because you know how your siblings, your spouse complains, mine used to, that the light was shining in his eyes. When I'm over here stitching and he's watching TV, it shines in his eyes. So I like this one because it has a lamp shade, and I usually have it right down here on my stitching so that it's right bright, because the older I get, the better light I like to have. But I won't leave it right there. Just wanted to show you that. I also have this Ott magnifying lamp. It has the LED lights all the way around the bottom, and then it is a magnifier. And it is Ott brand as well. When I'm working on black fabric like I am for Words to Live By, I use this. And I've got it over here. And I get it right so that I've got it shining right on that black fabric, and I'm looking through that magnifier. Even though I have my readers on that I stitched with, I need that extra magnification and that extra light to work on that black linen that I'm working on. As long as I have that, it's great. I can see everything I need to see. I love this lamp. It is more awkward to have it right here in between me and my stitching, so I only use it when I really need it. And as Pam and Steph found out, I've heard this forever but never talked to someone that actually happened to, if you don't keep a cover on it, the sun will shine through it when you're not there and start a fire. It actually started Pam's project. She has a little burn mark, a little scorch mark on it. This is just sheets came in this. It was the really nice sheets that came in a little fabric bundle package. And it was just the right size, so I slip it on there. Especially with all the windows in here, that would be bad, right? So this is my lap stand. I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but this is how I use it. I sit leaning back. I have issues with my upper back and my neck, so I do not like to stitch hunched over forward. I love to lean back. This will angle back towards me, and then I can turn this as well, whatever angle I want. If I'm really slouched down and tired, I tend to have it right up next to me, right here, stitching. I am nearsighted. I've had glasses since I was in the 4th grade. In junior high, I switched to contacts. And then 2 years ago, I am 53, I think. I think about 2 years ago, I couldn't focus up close anymore with my contacts in, which helped me see far because I'm nearsighted. But then I couldn't see close anymore because you know how your eyes stop switching back and forth the older you get. I have used readers for a long time to stitch on 40 count. I didn't need them to read, I just needed them to stitch. But now that I have, 2 years ago I switched to one monovision, one far contact, one near contact. So I don't need readers to read at work. I can read and see far. It's fabulous. If you can get used to them, it's fabulous. But I still use readers to stitch. Every day. All the time. I don't stitch without them. So this is how I stitch. I am a one-handed stitcher, not a two-handed stitcher. I do leave my left hand underneath to help guide the needle back and forth. But I do use just one hand. And I'll show you, I have the pattern. I'm going to put these down for a minute. The pattern is on a magnet. I'm stitching right here. The pattern is magneted above, and the symbol legend telling you what color is what symbol is over here on the side. So that while I'm stitching, I do not have to look anywhere else. I don't have to look down, I don't have to look over here. I am looking up at the TV regularly, but with my readers, I can look up over them and then look back down and then look up. Or at my laptop, I do have to turn my head if I'm watching. But you know how when you're watching Flosstube, you're stitching and you look up when you realize they're going to show you something good, right? This is the fabric basket I told you about that holds I keep my floss in Flosstube bags, and I keep them in that basket right there because otherwise they tend to slide right off the table, the floss. Because you sit them down and it just slides right off. And I do put my glasses down in there when I'm done. This is when I'm don't have them on. This is a really cute Ort box that I use that I got from Disney World in the Asia store. It's got these cute little babies around the edge. People have asked what an orts are. It's just your little piece of thread. When you're done stitching, you cut off that little bit, and if you have a trash right here, you throw it in the trash. I don't have a trash right here for some reason, so I just stick them in this little box, because otherwise they end up stuck to you all over your clothes, right? These front scissors are the ones that I use. This is my April scissors, because I have my favorite Dovo scissors that I use all the time. And I have lots of other scissors, but I always use these. So what I started doing was changing the fob out seasonally for the month. My dad made me this butcher block scissor holder. So I keep that sitting over here with some scissors that have sentimental value to me, that have fobs on them and things that mean something to me. So I just like to see them displayed. Because what if I drop these and I can't reach them and I need to reach another pair? No, it's mostly just for looks, but that sits here. This is just a little metal box that I stitched the top on at a retreat. They had this as one of the projects that we did. But because it's metal, I can stick all my needle minders on it. It's a good place to keep them. And then this is a cross-stitch chair that my sister-in-law Juliana made me. I just think it is the cutest thing. I'm sorry, I don't know the pattern name or anything about it. Oh, and this little leg just fell off. All right, so this is where I stitch every day because I want to know where all of you stitch and where and what time of day I stitch. I work all day, so I'm usually stitching at night, but if I'm home during the day, I have all these windows. These are the blinds that you can just pull part way down or push them back up. I do have blinds on every window, but if I'm home and it's daytime, the blinds are all the way up. All the windows are completely open, so I can see. I have a view of 3 sides. Beautiful valley. The mountains are up behind us this way, but the valley's out this way. So that's where I stitch. Okay, so a little bit more about my stand. Let me check my notes. Oh, I wanted to say, there's one-handed stitching and two-handed stitching. My left hand stays underneath all the time because I am guiding the needle, but I am just stitching with one hand. I have it up, I pull the needle up, put it back down, switch my hand underneath, pull it back out, push it back up. Two-handed stitchers keep the top hand, their dominant hand usually, well, both ways actually. Works better for some whether your dominant hand is on the top or the bottom. Try it both ways. But this one hand always stays on top and one hand always stays on bottom, and they just switch the needle back and forth between the hands, which is faster, I've heard. And I believe it. I have tried it several times for a couple of weeks each time because I keep thinking, oh, I just need to get used to it. Oh, it'll be fine. I hate it. I hate it. So I am a process stitcher, not a project stitcher. I don't buy patterns and think I'm making this because I want it to go on the wall right here. I stitch because I love the way it feels when I'm stitching. I love looking at it. I love creating it. I love the rhythm of the stitching. I have what Pam calls an under the bed box. Mine is a bag that sits up on a shelf full of finished projects that need to be framed or something done with them. And I'll get to it sometime, but finishing is not my favorite thing. And I like to get them out and look at them. And the ones that I have framed and hung on the wall, I do love to see. The stuff that I have out, I enjoy. But that is not my main concern. If I love the colors in something and I just think it would be fun to stitch, I just buy it and stitch it, and I don't care if it will ever be framed or if there's a place that it'll go or if it'll match my decor. So I am definitely a process stitcher. Project stitchers are fabulous. They get them done, they hang them up, they're actually finished, and you can actually see them. I love that. But I'm not concerned that I don't stitch fast enough. I stitch, the motion and the speed that I stitch with is relaxing to me, and I don't worry about, oh, if I could just do this, I could stitch faster. It's a relaxing hobby for me. I am not worried about how long it's going to take or if I could just do something different. I do like things to be ergonomically smooth and easy, which that's why I like to have the pattern and stuff right here, because I like it to feel good when I'm doing it. Does that make sense? So that is why I'm a one-handed stitcher, and I will probably never switch to two-handed stitching. I've stitched since I was 16 and now I'm 53, so to change that motion for me would be really hard. And if I was just starting out, I would probably learn to be a two-handed stitcher because that is faster. And I think you could get that. It takes a long time to get the stitches to lay the way. I mean, just after, what's it been, 40 years? My tension, I don't think about my tension. It's just, anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. It would take me a long time to fix that, but, so I'm a one-handed stitcher. Oh my goodness. Okay, we talked about all those things. So I started out in a hoop, just your regular round hoop that screws on the side when I was 16, because I had done a lot of embroidery as a young child, and that's just what you stitched in, was a hoop. Probably somewhere in the right around 90s, right around 1990, I discovered Q-snaps. And this is what this is right here. This is a Q-snap. It's a plastic frame. It is round tubing on the inside, PVC tubing. Very similar to sprinkler pipe, but nicer. A little more solid on that inside. And then these are plastic clamps that clamp things onto the outside. So it is a more rounded edge right here, so it doesn't leave as much of a crease when you're, as a hoop does, because a hoop is a really tight edge right there and it will leave a harder crease. I love that you can move it easily, flip the clips off, clip them back on wherever you want. It's portable, it's small. This is a very large piece. This is Shores of Hawk Run Hollow. I do fold up the sides and clamp them under the clamp, but I always fold it to the wrong side. I never have a clip over actual stitching. If there's not enough fabric to fold it over, then I use pieces of Warm and Natural, or you could use a piece of felt. So it's just a piece of Warm and Natural batting or a piece of felt, and I put it underneath and then put that clip on so that I am never putting that clip over the actual stitching. And as you use these longer and longer, years and years, they start to relax a little bit. They're not as tight, they're a little loose. So sometimes I need to put a couple of pieces of felt underneath it depending on how old they are to make it tight again, because I like my fabric to be tight. And then you can just rotate these a little bit to the outside like that and make it tight if it's not tight. I heard somewhere that you could put these in the dishwasher, run them through a dishwasher cycle with the heat setting, and it will help them shrink up if they've gotten really old and stretched out. And I tried that and it worked, so that was awesome. I just ran through the dishwasher on the heat setting, and then they weren't as tight as when I very first bought them, but they were definitely tighter. When I switched to Q-snaps, I stayed with Q-snaps. I love them because they're portable. So when I first started stitching and I didn't have a lap stand, I just stitched like this, either with a hoop or with Q-snaps for lots of years. I stitched like this. So I would rest the bottom against my chest usually, and then this part's resting on my arm so I can have my hand under here, and then I'm doing this with my hand, switching it back and forth like this. I started to have issues with this wrist because it has to be bent kind of at a weird angle to get under here. And if you're clear down here at the bottom, it's really hard to do. So then I would have to turn it around upside down to stitch on it up here, which I could do. I'm flexible, I can do that. If you're stitching over here close to this side, then you're kind of trying to hold it with your hands, and you can put your fingers underneath. And if you're over here on this side, then you kind of have to put your arm clear under here to get over here, and it kind of rests on your arm. I also have to bend my head down quite a bit further if I have it resting against me down here. Well, I have no idea if it's because I've been stitching since I was 16, every day of my life probably, or if I had some kind of injury or something, but I have issues in my neck right here that also contribute to one of my triggers for migraines. So when about 2007-ish, 2008, I became friends with found some stitchers in Salt Lake City. A guild there, an EGA guild, Embroidery Guild of America, and also the Swan Sampler Stitcher Guild. And there were stitchers there using this lap stand, and I was very curious about it, wanted to know more about it. It is by Artisan Designs. If you just search Artisan Designs lap stand, the first couple hits is probably going to be some store telling you that they don't carry it anymore and they can't get it anymore. That's only because he decided not to sell to retail stores anymore. You can still buy it from his website. I bought my first one 10 years ago at least, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. I've stitched on it every single day since. I love it. So it's artisandesigns.com. He only has one lap stand. This is the Elan, E-L-A-N lap stand. I'm not affiliated with him. I don't know him. I've never met him. I'm just telling you how I stitch and how I use my lap stand. There are lots of lap stands and floor stands. Do your research. Find out what you like, what you want to stitch with. I'm just going to show you how I use mine. I also have their floor stand. I ordered a backup. I've used this one for 10 years. Love it. Realized that if it was, but I take it traveling. So if I lost my suitcase and never got it back, I'd be heartbroken. Or if I ever tragically dropped it outside, I mean, something horrible where it's so solid, I don't know what you'd have to do to break it. But if I ever broke it, I'd be so sad. I think my husband could fix it. But anyway, I bought a backup one just several months ago, maybe 3-4 months ago. And I looked up on his website today, so these are current prices. This lap stand is $84.95, and it comes with the adapter that I'm going to show you in a minute. And then they also have, I'll show you the floor stand in a minute. Their Gazelle floor stand is $137.95. That's in dollars, $137.95. And then they have an Ergo floor stand that works better under furniture that is really low to the floor, like a lazy boy easy chair or couches that don't have very much clearance underneath. Their Ergo works really well, although mine works really well with that too. So, and the Ergo is $189.95. But those are his current prices. When I ordered 2 or 3 months ago, whenever it was, it came in like a week and a half. He is just a one-person store. His wife is a stitcher and asked him, she had been using some stands that she didn't like, and he's a woodworker, so she asked him to design one to her specifications. And that's how this all got started. And now he sells them, and I love them. But just keep in mind, it's not a huge factory. It's a one-man, unless he's hired some helpers, probably, maybe, working in his wood shop. So not a huge factory. They're made out of solid oak. It is the nicest, oh, it's just beautiful. Okay, so once I found the lap stand, and it does work with my Q-snaps, it also works with scroll rods that I'll show you in a minute, and it also works with stretcher bars, which I will also show you in it. And I think you could put a hoop in here as well, just the same. It has, as you saw, it has this clamp, which I've never seen on, it's called a V clamp. And it has, because it has that V shape right here, top and bottom. Can you see that? This knob up here pulls that clamp up tighter, so it goes up bigger and smaller. Does that make sense? Okay, so a Q-snap is rounded on the edge. It comes with this little 2 of these little adapters. It's a piece of wood, and it's triangle shaped. Hopefully you can see that. And it has this little piece of elastic that runs through it. I've had this one for 10 years now, over 10 years, so my elastic is wearing out. But bought a couple of extra, you can buy extra adapters from him. You could probably figure out a way to replace this elastic, or maybe just take a tuck in it, so it'll be a little tighter. But so far it works great, so I'm not worried about it. This adapter, when I'm using Q-snaps, and this is what they recommended, it was in the product description when I bought it, to use one adapter on the top for a Q-snap. So if you can see that little triangle adapter makes the top a flat surface instead of that V-shaped surface. The bottom is still a V-shaped surface, but the top is now a flat surface. On the Q-snap, these clips are just on wherever they ended up. You know, I rotate them a little bit to make it tighter, but otherwise. But this one that fits into the clamp of the lap stand, I have to rotate that clamp clear around so that the clamp is coming down on the fabric, not the Q-snap. So I have rotated this clear around so that when I put it in here, I unscrew it a little bit, stick it in, screw it back down tight. Hard, I want it tight. It is resting on the fabric, and that clamp is just barely to the side. Now it is resting on that clamp on the bottom, that clip, that plastic clip, but not on the top. And it just stays in there tight for me. I do not have any problems. Every once in a while, if I'll have a problem where it slips like this. This clip rotates and it will start to slip down like this. I have found that when it's doing that, it's because this plastic clip, the Q-snap clip, is really loose. So either get some new, you can buy replacement, you can buy just the clip replacements. Q-snaps come in all sizes. I use 11 by 11. You can buy them in 8 by 8. I think you can buy them in 6 by 6. You can buy them in 14 by 14. They come apart. There's extender adapters. I have it where it'll make it as big as 18 by 18 when I'm beading. So if you're having a problem with it slipping down like that, either add some pieces of felt to make this clip tighter or buy replacement clamps so that it's tighter. That's the only time I've ever had a problem with it slipping like that. But I do put it down pretty tight. And that is how I stitch with Q-snaps. Okay, if you're using scroll rods, you don't need any adapters. And I do stitch on scroll rods sometimes. This is my Peaceable Kingdom piece by Catherine Theron, which I would like to finish this year. It's on my Stitch 9 challenge. I need to finish it. It is on some very wide scroll rods. You can see how big this is when I put it up by me. Scroll rods usually have this piece of wood on the side that's pretty thick. Most scroll rods have that. So if I'm using scroll rods, I'll put it this way so you can see. It just goes right in there, and then you tighten it up. And that V-clamp works really well. It kind of, because it's a V, it kind of catches the inside edge of that piece of wood, top and bottom, and it holds it really well. And I tighten it down pretty tight. Now, if you'll notice, when you're working on a really wide scroll rods, this, as a lap stand, could be a little precarious. One of the features I love about this lap stand is that it extends to make it as wide as your scroll rods so that it's a little more stable. But even then, on a lap stand, that could make it top heavy. It might tip right out of your lap. This is called a frame weight. I'll show it to you closer here in a minute. I just put that on this base on the bottom so that it makes it more stable and it's not as likely to tip off if I move. But I still stitch with these really long scroll rods with my lap stand, just like this, and I stitch. I am a one-handed stitcher, so going around the side like this is a little more awkward because they are so wide, and sometimes I'll forget, just be stitching along, bash my hand into the side of it, trying to get my hand around underneath. If I'm working on scroll rods this wide, I usually start putting my hand underneath this way to get back and forth to make my stitches, instead of going around the side like I usually do when I'm on my 11 by 11 inchers. But it works just the same. It's fabulous. I can sit right here in my same chair and use these really wide scroll rods. I will also use my floor stand if I have a really large project, but I'll show you that in a minute. So a frame weight is just something heavy. This happens to be a little pillow that I bought at a retreat once in their little retreat store. It's got burlap kind of fabric on the front with the year, and it has this beautiful French fabric on the back, French type. The label says French General. This was probably another 10 years ago, so I don't know if you can still buy these. It feels like it's full of sand. It weighs a couple pounds. It's heavy. I've also seen small stuffed animals filled where they took the stuffing out, you know, just a little tiny Beanie Baby kind of thing. They took all the stuffing out of it and refilled it with BBs or something heavy so that it was heavy and it would sit and hold. But that's called a frame weight. I'll show you another use for that in a minute. But that's how I use scroll rods on my lap stand. If you have... Sorry. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. One of the things that bothers, I like my fabric really tight, and one of the things that bothers me about scroll rods is that there's nothing that holds them tight on the edge here. You can roll these and get them, roll your scrolls really tight and get it tight this way, but it's hard to get it tight this way. These are, I think if you Googled scroll rod side clips, you would find this. It's Velcro. This piece of hardware right here is a suspender clip. It's the exact same kind of clips made to use on suspenders. If you go to a sewing store like Joann's, these are suspender clips. If you want to make your own, and this is just webbing like you would use on the handle of a bag, with some Velcro on it. And it just wraps around that you put that clip on the edge of the fabric, you wrap it around, make it tight. The loop is on this side, the hook is on this side down here, close to this. I have made my own before. These are from the store. For some reason they work better if the bottom of the suspender clip is on top and what we think of as the top of the suspender clip is on the back. I don't know why. But that's how I make the sides tight. There are 4 of them. This one over here, I just have to make sure to leave enough room that it can still get in the clamp on my lap stand. So sometimes I have to move those out a little bit to leave enough room for that clamp. I try and get them at least equal, this one equal with this one, so it will pull in the same pace across here. Hopefully that made sense. All right, let me check my list in case I forgot something else. Nope, all right. Okay, the other thing that you might be using, these are called stretcher bars. These are really the cheap kind, well, the least expensive kind. They come in a 2-pack like this. You can buy them at Joann's, Michael's, online at a stitching store. It's usually a craft product because they're used in all kinds of crafts like painting and other things where you need to stretch a piece of canvas across a frame like this. So it has ends. Each end looks like this. And you buy the 2, you figure out what size square you need and you buy this length, then you buy this length, so you can have 2 packages of these. And then you put them together yourself to make a square. They just slide right into each other. I usually have to get a hammer out to get it in that last little bit so that, or a shoe, a heavy shoe works, to make them nice and tight. And then you thumbtack it, your piece around the edge. Either on the, you can either put the thumbtacks on this side right on the front, or you can wrap the fabric around and tack it on this edge up here. If you're going to use these, make sure you have lots of extra space that you're putting those thumbtacks through that is not going to show in the framing, because those thumbtacks will leave a mark and they'll sometimes pull the fabric out a little bit. This is a piece. This is a canvas piece, but I've also had some cross-stitch pieces that's framed like that, that's on a stretcher bars. These will also work in my lap stand or my floor frame that has the same, my floor frame has this exact same clamp on it. You just have to put both, it comes with 2 of these. I don't have the other one right here with me, but I put one on the top and one on the bottom so that they were both flat surfaces so that they could clamp right down on this little piece of wood. Make sense? So I could totally work on this right here. It is big. I usually put this one on my floor stand. One of the other things that you can do is, which is what we did in the class, I took this at an EGA class. If you're at a class where you've got a table right here in front of you, and you put this so that it's leaning off the edge of the table. Your table's clear back here, so you just barely have this on the edge of the table. And you put this frame weight right here. So it holds it on the edge of the table, but you can still stitch on it out here because the table stops. You know, the table's only coming to right here. You've just got it on the edge of the table with the frame weight to hold it still, and then you could stitch out here. You could do the same thing if you had really big scroll rods and you don't have a floor stand. You could have a table right here to the side of you, put this on the, where it only stops right here, put this frame weight down to hold it, and then where it's leaning off the table over here, you could stitch on it. That would also work. All right, I forgot to tell you about different kinds of scroll rods. I have the kind that came with, I bought my scroll rods from Artisan Designs. So the side piece, you can get this side piece in different lengths. So maybe you want it only this big, or maybe it's how much you like, how much area you need to be stitching. If it's a smaller area, it's easy, it's not as heavy and it's easier to manage, but maybe the design you're working on would be really annoying to have to keep rolling up and down. You need a bigger space open. Like when I was working on this big house, I needed to be able to see the whole house at once. So sometimes you need longer side pieces because you need more of it to see at a time, depending on how big your piece is. So these side pieces come in different lengths. And then these long pieces also come in different lengths. Almost every brand of scroll rod comes in different lengths. You can get short ones, you can get long ones. I have the ones that Artisan Design sells. I bought them from Artisan Designs. And the way they attach at the top and bottom is it has this groove, and then it has this little stick that fits in it. So you take this stick out, you lay the edge of your fabric across there, then you stick this over the fabric and kind of push that fabric down into that groove right on the edge. And then when you've done that, then you roll it and it holds that stick in. That's how my scroll rods work. You can also buy the kind that has a piece of webbing attached to it. And you actually sew your piece, top and bottom, to the scroll rods. You actually sew it right through this piece of webbing. That's called the sew-on kind. A lot of people prefer that because they can get it on there the exact way they want it and it's not coming off. You can also get the kind where it is split. See if I can show you. See how this splits apart? It's not split down here. The split starts about right here. So you split it apart and you slide the edge of your fabric in there and then roll it up, and that holds it. So there's lots of different kinds of scroll rods and how they attach. There's also a kind, the no-sew method, that's kind of like a Velcro. You can attach it with, it's kind of got, your fabric will kind of, as long as you have an extra enough fabric that you don't care if it gets all fuzzy from the Velcro, then that works really well because a lot of people just don't want to sew it on and they don't like any of the other methods. So there's lots of different kinds of scroll rods. Okay, I think I covered, hopefully I covered all the things. If there was something I didn't cover there, let me know. All right, so I was going to show you my floor stand really quick. But now I have all this stuff in the way, so I can't get it over here. Hang on. So I have the Gazelle. They have two models, like I said. Oh, I was going to tell you this really quick. This is a mighty bright lamp. This is when I'm traveling. I'm just going to be in a hotel room for a couple of nights, maybe even to a class. I clamp this to the top of my stitching. Whether I have my, sometimes if I'm just staying overnight, I don't take my lapstand, but I usually do. It clips to the top of my frame like this, and then this head comes down here. It's got several LED lights on the bottom, so it does take two AAA batteries, I believe. And after a couple of hours of stitching, I do have to replace the batteries, but it is extremely portable. It's called Mighty Bright. And they have several types. This is the kind that has the long strip. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has 6 LEDs in a row. Love that. If I'm going to a class where I know I'm going to have power and I'm going to be sitting at a table, this lamp is from IKEA. It's a gooseneck lamp. Extremely bright. Love it. I can sit it on the table in front of me and then angle that right where my stitching is, because I'm at a class I quite often have. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to tell you. Sorry. You can also, if you don't want this on your lap or you're at a class maybe, you can set it on the table. And see these holes right here? You can unscrew this clamp and move it down to a lower hole. So maybe you'd like it to be sitting at a table because you're at a class. And then this clamp would be lower and you could stitch on it with it sitting. You can angle it towards you and stitch on it sitting on a table. So that's when I would use that table lamp to come over around the top of it towards me. The other thing I was going to say about this is that if I'm going to, if I'm just sticking it in a bag because I'm going in my car to a class, I just turn it to the side and stick it in my bag like that. But I'm careful with it when I put it in and out of the car. If I'm putting it in a suitcase, taking it on a plane, I completely unscrew this and take this arm off so that it lays flat. It's awesome. It's very portable. All right, let's see if we can get the floor stand over here. Without bumping the camera. All right, this is the Artisan Gazelle floor stand. This piece is flat, so it will slide under a low profile, a piece of furniture that comes close to the floor. This arm is not, so that would not, unless you were in a chair like this one with legs on it, that would not slide underneath. For me, the flat piece slides under my chair like this, and the part that's not as flat is sticking out. And I can still use it leaning back like this. And I put it backwards. Sorry. I use it like this. I think the one that they have for an easy chair slides in the other direction, I'm not sure. The Ergo one. This is the Gazelle, so I use it like this. So I'd have to be sitting, actually I would move it up here and scoot it over a little bit. And then I'd have my project in here. Clamp works the exact same way. I would angle it the way I want to. I can angle, I can make it taller or shorter if I can remember which way this clamp goes. I can move this to the height I want, and then I can also move this to the angle I want. And when you're stitching along and you need to flip to the back, to end that thread, you just unscrew it a little bit, flip it over, you're on the back, end your thread, flip it back over, tighten it up. Love this V-clamp that Artisan Designs has. It's fabulous. So that's how my floor stand works. All right. Hopefully I covered everything. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments and I will answer. And thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.